time.
It is time.
It is time.
It is time.
It is time to talk. It is not time to duel. Or maybe it is, because change memories.
And we all have
We will do questions again later. It'll probably get answered now that we are starting. Okay, so welcome to a lesson in Kingdom Hearts with the Seekers of Darkness. Dorkness. I have a list today because I have metal strapped to my face and I'm sorry. So, to start off, we're going to clarify who we mean when we talk to who, because there are too many people who are the same person with the same name and too many goddamn people named Ansem. So, to clarify, when we say Xehanort's Heartless or Ansem Seeker of Darkness, it is the asshole from the first game. Also, possessed Riku. There is Xemnas. He has a name. I like him because he has his own name. Good job, Xemnas. There is Science Nort, which is the Science Xehanort entity that existed for a single year between Terra getting possessed and shit happening. That is pre-Xemnas. We call him Science Nort because he is full of science. There is Riku. Stop being angsty. Oh my god, we have too many people calling themselves Ansem. Can you not? We have Young Xehanort / Baby Nort / Small Nort / any denomination of tiny little Nort. We have Old Man Nort, and we have Ansem the Wise, who no one actually likes, also known as Ansem the Asshole. Who is actually Ansem, and none of the other people in this are actually Ansem, but here we are. So getting that out of the way so names are slightly less confusing. To start, we're going to talk about the definition of actual literal Kingdom Hearts because that is a thing that is confusing. There are 3 things that are called that over the course of the franchise. Only one of them is actual literal Kingdom Hearts. The rest is Xehanort literally duct taping things together to try and make it like a sad cosplayer. Go ahead. So, actual Kingdom Hearts is the thing that showed up at the end of BBS and in the browser version of Key that started the Keyblade War. It is the big blue moon in the Badlands. The other 2 are not Kingdom Hearts. The correct recipe is the 7 Princess of Hearts and 13 Pure Darknesses, which currently Xehanort is ramshackling together by trying to clone himself. Because, yay, convolution. That is how you make the Keyblade. Hi, Mike. Keyblade with the letter Key or Kai, that is an X. I usually do this when I'm talking about it to make it less confusing. Because they just really wanted that fun, I guess.
We have plenty of room up there.
Yeah, go to the front. There's plenty of seats up there.
We're at the very, very beginning. You haven't gotten to the fun bits yet.
There are seats near the front.
How much are you Floyd?
Are you saying you're fine? Yes, I think we're good. So that is the only actual Kingdom Hearts. It is made, you can only get it via Keyblade. That is how you make the Keyblade. This is the rest. The rest is them just going close enough and lying and trying really hard and pretending it's Kingdom Hearts, but it's not. Go ahead and do next. The floating moon in the world that never was. This was quote unquote the heart made up of people's hearts. It is only made of people. Actual Kingdom Hearts is the heart of literally all things. Kind of think Pocahontas. Everything has a spirit and a soul. Every rock, tree, and thing. This is only people. It is made by harvesting Heartless. It is hot glued together over the top of the world that never was because Xemnas was trying real, real hard. Next slide is the big door in the abyss, the door to darkness. That was Ansem hot gluing things together. It is made up of the heart of worlds. All of the worlds that got blown up in Kingdom Hearts 1 and pre-Kingdom Hearts 1, he was grabbing the same way Xemnas was harvesting the hearts in Kingdom Hearts 2 and gluing them together to make a thing that was Kingdom Hearts. He was also extra dumb and thought it was made of darkness because he's a heartless and his priorities got a little skewed there for a minute. But we will talk more about that later.
It's not light either.
It's a thing. The state of the world. This is an important thing. Kairi's grandmother's little fairy tale that she tells in Kingdom Hearts 1 that gets repeated a couple times now helps set the stage, especially for the difference between the current games and Key, the cell phone game during the Keyblade War. The world used to be a single contiguous world, like one would imagine a Final Fantasy game, and then the Keyblade world happened and people fucked up and there was an apocalypse. And what was left over were a bunch of little tiny worlds. She describes it as the hearts and the light of children made a world form, which gets into like some frickin' Adventure Time territory of, like, did children just remember Disney movies? But that's a theory. The part that's canon is that the world went bluey, and there are now little tiny worlds that are separated. It is we are living in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, technically. Destiny. Next. Most of us know this here, but I go over really fast anyway. Heartless and nobodies. You have the somebody gets eaten by a heartless, their heart consumed with darkness becomes a new heartless, and if they have a strong body, they become a nobody. Huzzah. Heartless are poorly named. They are not heartless, they are made of hearts. Because, yes, come, we have seats in the front still. Or be loners in the back, I guess.
They are the darkness of the heart.
They are the darkness of the heart. And the thing that has been skipped over, it is a thing that was pretty prevalent, but I feel like since it was such old lore, it's gotten forgotten. All emblem heartless are artificially created. The only naturally occurring heartless are purebloods or anything that doesn't have a little heartless symbol on it, which are like your shadows, your neo shadows, that
Everything that was in 0.2.
everything that was in 0.2 in the actual World of Darkness. Team Science fucked up and made a bunch of like weird super soldier emblem heartless, and that's where those all came from. Have fun figuring out who the fuck decided like monkey was a good idea or various other things. Next is nobodies. They don't have tarts until they do. So for those of you who have not played Dream Drop Distance, Demix was right. We do have hearts. Don't be mad. Only I am mad, Demix. I'm very mad, but that's okay. The whole shebang is that the heart, the body will start to replace the heart the way that your body regrows cells in your heart. So you grow a pseudo heart that might be a little different, which is why the personality of some nobodies that are typical, not counting Roxas, he's totally different. He's Roxas. Or Zemnis for that case. They're a little different, but they're basically the same person. So they all did have feelings. Roxas can cry, Axel can cry. Shion cannot have ice cream with anyone ever again, and we are all sad. For those of you who did not hear it, Xehanort asked.
Who?
Those are fighting words.
Zemnis was lying to everyone in order to use their bodies to make Horcruxes, basically. And Demix figured it out, but no one listened to him because he's Demix. I guess. Listen to your bard. Next. Unburst and Dream Eaters are weird. They are things. Unburst are literally parts of Vanitas. They are parts of they are his negative emotions that could not be contained. There's, for those of you who don't know, there is a PBS novel that is canon that has 2 additional chapters that explain more about Vanitas. We'll talk more about those later. And they go into a little bit more about Unburst physics. Arguably, because Vanitas is a creature of pure darkness driven from another person, he is actually like a cousin of a Heartless, the way like a lion and a tiger are both cats-ish. Dream Eaters are confusing and concerning because the Keyblade War. Those of you who have seen back cover know that the Master of Masters created the first Chirithy, and Dream Eaters, they only exist in the realm of sleep and in Keyblade era time, which is a concerning thing, and we will talk more about that later. You have good Dream Eaters that are light, and nightmares, which are dark and bad, because naming conventions that make sense for a change. Good job, Square. Okay, next. Moving onward. Yes. Yeah, you're right. There's only one me, says Sora. So, there are 6...
Are you sure?
There are 6.5 Soras, and yes, half, and yes, the half is nominated because shit's weird. Going chronologically through all of our Soras, we start with, next slide. We start with Ventus. The original Sora is not even actually Sora, it is Ven. Ven also, apparently, is from the goddamn Keyblade War. He is several thousand years old. We don't know what happened to his memories, because he didn't seem to know about the Keyblade War where he was being trained by Xehanort in any relevant flashbacks. Otherwise, you could just go, oh, well, Vanitas is what happened to his memory. But no, that wasn't... it is concerning. We know very little about him in this context, other than that he was nominated to be one of the second-gen foretellers and has been around since then, and it is concerning. Moving on to BBS timeline, Ventus and Vanitas. It is Xehanort's fault, and no one is surprised, because everything is his fault. Going on. He even admitted it, happily, while cackling, and his hand being a dolphin. Vanitas looks like Sora, not for the reasons you may think. It is because, so when he was cut in half, Sora filled in the part of Ven's heart that was missing, which is how Ven survived, and because he filled in the part that Vanitas goes, Vanitas originally didn't have a face, he looked like an unburst. He took on Sora's appearance because Sora kind of was like hooked into the part where he's supposed to get plugged in, and it made weird things happen. And yes, we know this. Going forward, and then Xehanort tried to merge them to make the Keyblade, but that doesn't work because a 1-1 ratio is not a 7-13 ratio, and that is not how math works. So unsurprisingly, the Keyblade exploded. Going forward, we know what happens to Ben after that. He goes into Naptime Land and joins the Sora Heart Party, and has been around for a while, probably the reason that Sora has the ability to wield a Keyblade in the first place. Because he's not a special snowflake. Going forward, Roxas is fairly straightforward, all things considered, because he used to not be. He is Sora's nobody. He was born when Sora shipped himself. Yay! He works relatively like a normal nobody, but because Sora resurrected, kind of, while he was still alive, weird shit happened. Also, he took on Ben's appearance for the same reason Vanitas took on Sora's appearance. Yeah, his life sucks. He is Roxas. But he has his own game and is the protagonist and it is straightforward. Going forward, and then there is Xion. Xion is Sora's clone. She looks like Kairi because of the memories of Kairi that are trapped inside of Roxas. That were lost when Sora lost his memory and changed memories. Roxas accidentally osmosis those, and so did Xion, and so she looks like the version of Sora you are most familiar with for most of the game, which is why, because Saïx is an asshole, she just looks like a puppet because he doesn't give a fuck. And she looks like Ven to people like Braig, who knew Ventus. Eventually, she starts looking like herself as she brings a Gary identity to more and more people, which is how Lee eventually sees her as her. That's that. It's pretty straightforward. She basically has Cloud's plot from Final Fantasy VII, huzzah. And then she went away, and it was sad. We love you, Xion. And hopefully she will come back in Kingdom Hearts 3 because, oh my god, let this child have some ice cream. Going forward. I had 2 slides for this and did it all in one. So yes, that is how the memories work. Going forward. Sora. He's an AI. He's a different Sora. He is totally separate because we needed more of those. He has arguably had more character development than actual Sora because when Sora went through change memories, he forgot everything, and when AI Sora did, he did not. He lives in the journal. That is relevant to Kingdom Hearts key things, which we will get to at a later slide. Going forward, Naminé. She is half Sora. There is a line in one of the Ansem reports in Kingdom Hearts 2 that were written by Diz/Ansem the Wise, where it talks about how Naminé was created when Kairi's heart left Sora's body in that instance. So she is like their awkward nobody love child for some reason. Yes, and then she eventually goes to Kairi because like that's where she goes. That's why she has memories specifically, yes, over Sora's memories and people connected to him and not everyone. It is just, like technically, it's only people related to Sora. However, that's a broad definition. It's anyone whose heart is connected to him. Arguably, she could floor Xehanort because their hearts are literally connected because he tried to possess him a couple of times now. So she's probably benched until the end of page 3 for that exact reason. Sorry, Naminé. Going forward. Actual literal Sora, who is not even the original Sora, who has the heart party. It's getting a little crowded in there. Yeah. Also, yeah, Data and some crashed that party for some reason. Next slide. He is full of friendship. He will be your bro. He gets shit done. Yay. But he is not the brightest crayon in the box. Riku and Joshua try to deal with this quite regularly. The only reason he has a Keyblade is because of Ventus. As I mentioned earlier, it is because Ventus's heart is crashing his body because of how Keyblades work. No one passed him the power. In theory, he loses his ability to use a Keyblade when Ventus leaves. So that might be an arc in Kingdom Hearts 3 that is to be considered. He might have had one long enough that that won't happen to him. We don't know. We know very little about Keyblades, ironically. Nomura goes out of his way to say that Sora is just some guy. He is the, average Joe style protagonist and drives this home a lot. So that is something to take note. And when he says, "My friends and my heart are my power," it's funny because it is quite literal. So next, he often makes poor life choices and is not quite the hero people imagine him to be throughout most of the series. A lot of people were caught off guard in Dream Drop Distance when he suddenly was getting possessed, but there was a lot of foreshadowing, mostly in the form of anti-form when he, turned into a Heartless sometimes, casually. He also, yes. Oh, you're good.
But I would have thought it would be semi-obvious that Sora didn't have all light from the very beginning.
Some people
the
get...
big darkness actually came from the shadows.
Yes. I try very hard to defend this point because there are people who go, no, he's super pure, and that's not wrong because the game is set up to mislead you. But I have a slide full of evidence just so I don't spend an hour arguing with people. I don't want to be that guy. Scholarly sourcing, go. But yes, he also antagonizes the organization a lot. In the same breath. Well, yes, he murdered Demix, and there's no part of that that's okay. He murdered him in cold blood, and then was like, "Who wants to be next?" That's a very unhero-like thing to do. One of my favorite fun facts: Riku has technically never actually killed anyone, I believe. He killed one person, and that was Roxas. Hi. Sora has killed a lot of people, whereas even while fighting the organization, Riku goes out of his way to be merciful and not to do that. Sora is just like, fuck you, you dead now. You're in my way. It is concerning, and Sayax often comments like, oh yes, we're poking the anger in your heart to get you to do things for us. Cool, thanks. Thanks for being an angry child. So the final, and well, now we're going after Sora's and a Riku thing, is a thing. Going forward, Dream Drop Distance. It's been out for a while, so there's less confusion surrounding it, but we'll go through it real fast. It is our tie into 3. Sora and Riku's excellent adventure. One of the reasons Dream Drop Distance is confusing is because it tells its story non-linearly in the game full of time travel, so it's extra bad.
It's mostly dreams.
It was mostly dreams. Sora and Riku get to the realm of sleep by going back in time on Destiny Island. That is weird and explained in 5 different cutscenes, but that is what happens. The realm of sleep is not temporally stable. Joshua, showing up and explains that a lot. Joshua existing makes a lot of weird metaphysics into a canon. He has a conversation with Riku that's like, yep, parallel world theory is real now. Yay! Yes, so there are a lot of timey-wimey things. The realm of sleep generally has a Narnia-esque effect, is the point. Going forward. The timeline. We will get to this later, though. My favorite quote from Ray, where he tries to make things not confusing. Going forward. The whole thing is that they both go to the realm of sleep. Sora is in the normal realm of sleep, and Riku, because he's so gay, becomes a Dream Eater. I'm sorry for shipping. We ship everyone. Everyone is gay for everyone unless they're Sora and Kairi, I guess, in which case they're the head kid sitting in the corner. So Riku goes into Sora's dreams, and that's why they are shifted, and when one falls asleep, the other wakes up, because it's based on when Sora falls asleep. When he's dreaming, Riku wakes up, and vice versa. Eventually, the Norts go to Jack Sora, and Riku is like, no, that is mine. You cannot pass. But why would you even do that? Because Keyblades. Because that's everything that Xehanort ever does. Zigbar gives the most concise exposition that the entirety of Kingdom Hearts has ever given, and it is beautiful, where he says, we were going to round up a bunch of empty huts, hook them up to Kingdom Hearts, and fill them with the same body of mind, aka turn them all into Xehanort. Thank you, Greg, for using normal person words to explain things. We love you. Except we don't, because you're kind of a douche sometimes. But that's okay. Yes, sometimes, Roxas, sometimes. Yes, so we've gone over all of that. And then there's Xehanort, and the Xehanort timeline, which is the confusing thing, and the thing why most of you are actually here. There are going to be 13 Xehanorts, because he has said this, and Organization 13. After looking at the chessboard in the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, we will get into a more in-depth analysis of that later. We have identified a surprising number of the Norts, but we have a handful of, like, who is this Seeker of Darkness going to be? Yes, so next slide. Baby Norts and Master Norts. Actual original Baby Norts is just Moana. He just wants to get off his islands. And he is a Disney princess. And the other one is the time travel asshole. He loses his memories when he goes back into his original time, so they are basically separate characters. This is important because we're going to be dealing with, like, pre-time travel met himself from the future Xehanort in Kingdom Hearts 3 at the beginning when he's with Ericus. Ideally, there's still some questions about what that scene actually is, but in theory, there was a time when Xehanort was not an asshole for like 5 minutes. And then a lot of things happened, and we don't know a lot of those things. But at some point, he grew up, became angry, joined the Church of Darkness, murdered Aventus, and lost all of his hair. Going forward.
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order at all. He possesses a lot of people. We all know this. BBS happens. He possesses Terra. That's how the Xemnas situation begins. Next slide. Science Sword is a mystery. Science Sword is one of the most confusing phenomenons in Kingdom Hearts because we don't know who he is. The question is whether or not Xemnas if Xehanort or Terra are driving the body at what times. Even he's confused about it. He's like, who the fuck am I? In one of the cutscenes. He later then angrily pronounces himself Ansem. Greg is like, hey Xehanort, and he's like, don't touch me. And so
we discussed this not touching thing, and he touched me, so I stabbed him.
Yes. And so what exactly went on in his head is not something that is fully expressed, and hopefully something that will happen with more detail in Kingdom Hearts 3. Next slide. So the leading theory is he has his own heart party. It is Terra and Xehanort in a perfect stalemate. But if Terra's here and Xehanort's here, who's driving the body? And the idea is an actual phenomenon called thank you. I forgot the word. Dissociative amnesia, where when you have amnesia for so long, you have developed a new personality with new experiences and new morality. So the Science Nort persona may be like an entirely separate Nort altogether that is neither Terra or Xehanort. That is a weird mixture of both of their influences, but mostly just a guy who hung out with Baby Enzo a lot.
Sorry
Yes.
to be a bother, but there's a Pokemon raid.
It's actually because of Daniel.
Yes.
Because I'm sure if you met Angelo.
Well, at this point, he's Ansem's apprentice. Yeah, he's Ansem's apprentice for a year. Ansem is the one who rescues him and raises him, and so he lives a year in this like half-life, being neither Xehanort or Terra, being like adopted by the science family and like being a big brother figure for Enzo and helping Evan in the labs and stuff like that. And seems pretty chill until he starts murdering all of his friends. You know.
He likes power, just like those two like power. Terra
Yes.
and
For those of you not seen, there are some extra scenes at the end of, like, you have to unlock it by watching the coded movie in one of the compilation 2.5 things that has an extra scene expanding on this stuff. And otherwise, we have very little information. Yes. Which is most of this slide is the period of time that was the year Science Snort was Science Snort, and he did bad science, and when they went from like kind of okay science to let's build a murder basement because the 8-year-old asked us to, that's canon by the way. Because Ienzo asked us to build a murder basement and then start hurting people in the Heartless in our murder basement. We don't really know a lot about that timeline or what caused that. And that could have a big impact on all of the characters present for it and stuff, as well as Lee and Isa. One of the leading theories is Lee and Isa, if you notice in BBS, they are like trying to break into the castle seemingly. Some people theorize that they had a third trio type friend who got kidnapped and experimented on, and so they're trying to get their missing friend from the aristocracy. And that could be, but that's just a theory, and I'm not that. So next, you thought it was Ansem, but it was me, Ansem. Many names, but the asshole we all know and love. He is officially Mr. Rogue Guy TM. He was on the island originally, who possesses Riku. He is the Heartless. He is probably the least confusing Nort. Until you consider Unguardian and the fact that it might be a Keyblade, but we will talk about that later. Going forward, we have Zemnis, who isn't confusing until he's the most confusing because he shows very obvious signs of having Terra's memories. So I propose to you the following information. If Science Snort was Terra's body that was possessed and a nobody is only the body left behind, is Zemnis not more Terra than Xehanort? There is a lot of evidence for this for, obviously, the scenes where he is talking to Aqua and her armor and calling her armor old friend. Also, if you play Days, he is, like, surprisingly nice to Roxas, and, like, the joke is generally a lot of his, like, I'm sad, and so we're going, no, you're not, you're a nobody, is I'm actually sad, but I'm not going to explain this to this fucking asshole. Mind you, he still did a lot of bad things, and there is still a percent of Xehanort in there. But there is a high percent of Terra. There is a chance that in Kingdom Hearts 3, Zemnis will basically just be Terra, and that is how we get Terra back. There's also a lot of evidence in 0.2. When Aqua runs into Terra in the Realm of Darkness, he is initially surprised because she sees him as he was, which implies, we know his appearance changed, but the idea that he, would now look like Zemnis. If you're an animation junkie like me, you will notice that all of his mannerisms and the way he moves his arms are of Zemnis' exact mannerisms and not his old mannerisms from when he was a child. So, going forward, and that brings us back to now. And so, with the death of Ansem, the not actually Ansem, and Zemnis the nobody, we have Xehanort once more. Link in the very, very, very back.
Have you, speaking of, like, if you go back a slide with the whole entire Zemnis' final form, if you look at his final form and you look at Sora's final form, you see
yes.
the striking resemblances?
That's one of my favorite fun facts. The final form zebra coat of Zemnis and Sora's final form use the same color palette and have a lot in common and stuff, and it is concerning.
Well, the reason why I was bringing that up is there's a theory that when the explosion of Ansem's I'm going to try and contain Kingdom Hearts like an idiot machine exploded and purged supposedly purged the last of Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, out of Riku, they basically went, oh, I need to find a new vessel, and went to the closest thing, which was Zemnis, which allowed him to unlock his final form. Which still doesn't explain why he didn't use the Keyblade.
I like that. For those of you who cannot hear, because I'm bad and I have a mic runner and I'm not using them, I love you, Roxy.
I hear you, but
was the idea that the darkness that fled Riku, which was Ansem Seeker of Darkness, when we had Deus Ex Kingdom Hearts, literally, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, reunited with Zemnis in some capacity, and that is how he obtained his final form. Moving forward, Very timey-wimey. So this is where I will lead you, Strelexia. Come forth and point at my horrible MS Paint drawing. I have an art degree. And this is what I use it for. So, the timeline of Xehanort. 60 some odd years ago, we have a baby Nort. He runs into Mr. Rogue Guy, who is Ansem, who is the Heartless. He then grows up to be Old Man Nort over to where Terra is, if you would point. Yes. And he possesses Terra, which he then becomes Science Nort, and then splits into Ansem and Xemnas. Baby Nort explains in exposition held a cutscene that I may have watched like 500 times trying to figure this out. Ansem goes back in time where he then talks to Baby Nort as Mr. Rogue Guy, because you have to leave your body behind to time travel. That's the rule. So that's how he splits into Nobody and Heart, or possibly why. Possibly. But as a Heartless without a body, he can go back in time. He hits up his past self and is like, here, have some time traveling powers, and just sits on the island for 16 years, trolling children in a cave until he's like, oh, that Riku kid looks like an acceptable anti-hero. I'll possess that. And then when Dream Drop Distance happens and Sora and Riku go back to that same point in time in the island, he cock-blocks Sora from getting into the realm of darkness, or into the realm of sleep where he was supposed to. And that is how Sora and Riku wind up split up, and all of that happens. So, like, he goes back in time, messes with Sora when Sora goes back in time, and then goes on to possess Riku and give him candy. To lure him into the white band of duo antagonist possession time. Dark band, I guess it would be. And then of course, Sora and Riku beat both Ansem and Xemnas. They recombine into the same person, and then at KH3D, where everything reconverges, we have Old Man Nort. Any questions for the unholy timeline that is Xehanort?
I don't want
I don't want me neither. You first, sir.
Okay, so Ansem, Xehanort goes back in time.
Yes.
To give Baby Nort the ability to time travel.
Yes.
And he just sits there on an island.
Yes.
You said that the theory was that you don't time travel without a body?
No, that is an explicit statement in canon that is concerning because it seems somewhat contradicted. I don't want to call it a plot hole because it probably means there are extra rules we don't know because of how the moral works.
The main thing I was thinking was if, at the end of the day, if you can't have a body of time travel, Ansem is not going to have a body, which allows them to Baby Nort still have.
So yes, the theory is that he cheated via like he got the time travel powers by getting rid of his body, but because he gave it to himself and like half possessed himself, he managed to find a loophole in the rules of how time travel works. There are probably better answers. They will probably be explained in KH3. Also, if you have seen Final Fantasy VIII, the joke is that the metaphysics for time travel work exactly the same as in Final Fantasy VIII. They are just less well explained because they had less time. They did not have 4 discs. You had a question.
Yes. My main question is, why did he choose to make this so complicated?
This is, I haven't answered that. This is actually like his plan G, okay? This man had like all of these different like things he was going to do to accomplish this, and he had backup plan after backup plan, and then he was like, I guess we're doing the retarded time travel one now. You.
So, Sora has
Yes, that is an active concern. The question is, if Sora created 2 nobodies by having 2 hearts in him, aka Roxas and Naminé, why would Terra not have created 2 nobodies by having both Xehanort and his own heart removed? And the answer is yes, that is the correct question to ask, but we don't know, and there might be more nobodies. Yay. You.
Is Sora Terra than a nobody?
No.
But is Ansem super like a Sora person from Fantasy?
Pardon?
Yes, you figured it out.
No, he's Ultimecia. He's going back in time and possessing himself like Ultimecia did. Purple hair.
Okay, so does, like, right before
current old man Nort still has no name. I actually have extra information on that. So at the end of Dream Drop Distance, Baby Nort in Dream Drop Distance does not have a Keyblade. It is before he left the island, it is before he got the power to wield one. When he summons a Keyblade, his eyes flash. He is possessed by his future self. It is not actually him, and that's why his Keyblade is like a weird time travel-y version of No Name, and is still called No Name. It is basically No Name with a keychain, the way that any of Sora's Keyblades are the key with a keychain. So he still has that. He is the only one who has it, and we don't know how he got it. He might have just stolen it off the mantle. Gentleman back there who's had their hand up for a long time. Are you? Oh wait, there are people. There are.
No, it's you.
Thank you, Roxas, for remembering to do the thing.
So when there's that line surface to Erica's possibly surviving in Terra in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Do you think that somehow plays into like science or where Erica's possible? Where is Erica's dead?
I have a great answer for that. Oh, we can go. I have a lot of, I will come back to that. I will probably remember loudly in the middle of something else. There are a lot of reasons for Ericus to come back in some form because he was killed by a Keyblade, and that means he would in theory have a Heartless of the Nobody. Or wait, no, did Xehanort specifically shake him without a Keyblade to prevent that?
I don't think that we actually saw.
We don't see how he died, which is no. Terra got him down, and then Xehanort hopped in and just KO'd him. You with your hand up in the middle row. Yes. Larcene is confirmed because her voice actor has said that she has done work for Page 3. Luxord, I will talk about. He is confirmed because of the chess game. Also, he is Nomura's favorite. Nomura has talked about this, so he'll probably come back if for no other reason than that. If Demix doesn't come back, I am going to chew off my left foot. Red shirt.
So where does like lingering will or Terra's armor fall to? Is that like his nobody or is that just something else? Or?
That is his mind TM. It is not considered either his heart or his body. It is literally his will. It is the last vestments of his like quote unquote will resisting Xehanort. It is a separate thing. It talks to Domine once. That was a thing that happened in the orchestra tour. That is part of the canon because Square Enix. Suit.
I actually two one question. One is the
Yes.
piece of information. You mentioned like is Danix and Marcine and all that are they going to come back? That reminded me of Maxim.
Yes.
I literally just came from
His panel.
I was there
Yes.
yeah,
for a while.
Who is a beautiful human.
yeah, and he confirmed that as far as he knows, Maxim not because he said as far as he knows they are done with recording voiceover and they didn't contact him at all.
Okay, that makes me sad. He may not have speaking lines because like if Ienzo is confirmed, he has to logically be there. Pikachu, last question for Pikachu before we move on with you have one more thing?
One other thing. Is Disney working on all this again? Yeah.
I have lots of things to talk about that later. Your last question before we move on.
So at the end of I'm sorry for spoilers, but
Oh, you're fine. Everyone here should be ready for spoilers. We're talking about the congruity of the lore.
yeah.
Yes.
So at the end of Dream Drop Distance, or nearly, I don't
Yeah.
know the exact end, you battle young Xehanort.
Yes.
Where does that young Xehanort fit in? Like,
He is the one that was. He's the one that was given time travel. He's the one. He's that stick figure right there. He was given time travel by Ansem, and he uses that to collect the other Norks out of time and break time travel rules by cheating, to the extent of our knowledge. Because he repeatedly says, quote unquote, in order to travel through time, you have to leave your body behind. But we know he time traveled to other places and grabbed those Norks because you fight him in BBS as a secret boss. so he was there. He is considered one of the 13 of the new organization as a version of Xehanort that is like extra easy to deal with because he doesn't need extra darkness because he's already Xehanort. He doesn't have a Keyblade yet, which is why he does not get one until he's possessed by Old Man Nort himself in the future to gain more power, which is where that boss fight comes in. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yes. Moving on. Riku goes through a lot of shit. Back to easy recap stuff. This is things that people know. One of the fun facts that usually gets mixed that I like to talk about is Roxas broke Riku's wrist, and that is a cast. Once upon a time, many moons ago, lots of people in the fandom argued about that. I don't think anyone cares anymore, but I like talking about it. Going forward, no one taught Riku about stranger danger.
Touch my keyboard.
And, you know, if that had been a thing, we would have had several games. Going forward, no, Riku, you're not also, and so the explanation for the blindfold, which is another thing people trip up, he is just Elsa, it is could feel, don't feel. That's it, he is Elsa. Let him sing, let it go dramatically, replace the word cold with darkness, that's it. Yes, so that is fine. He becomes not Ansem shaped again because literally Deus Ex Kingdom Hearts. Like, Kingdom Hearts blew up and he got better. The end. That is the biggest, in my opinion, plot holy type thing Kingdom Hearts has done. And it's the thing no one's mad about. Going forward, it is, no one cares. It's an acceptable plot hole. Blake?
I've heard that the reason for that plot hole is, I'll wait.
Thank you, Roxy.
Okay, yeah. I heard the reason for that potential plot hole is when the explosion of the I'm going to try and conceal Kingdom Hearts because I'm an idiot machine blew up.
Mm-hmm.
It was an explosion of light, and the part of Ansem Secret of Darkness that had a hold on Riku was, well, darkness. So the bright light made that part of Ansem go, no, I don't like this guy.
Yes. I agree. I agree. You have a question?
Yeah. Are you still supposed to hit Kyrie or is there a lock now?
Kyrie did nothing wrong!
Queen of my heart.
I remember there.
Leave my wife alone and give her a damn keyblade already! Let her join the party and fight! So Kyrie has a surprising bit of convolution around her despite the lack of screen time that she has. She got a Keyblade literally by accidentally touching Aqua's because we made Aqua a master kind of before she was ready because Ericus was concerned about things. So there is a scene where she goes and grabs onto Aqua's Keyblade. That is when she was past the power. Aqua also gave her like a random magic spell that was, because Aqua just randomly goes around delivering god tier enchantments on people. Yeah, it's like, this will guide you if something bad happens, and that's how she got to Destiny Island when Radiant Garden basically blew up. She grew up in Radiant Garden. She was probably she probably grew up and was raised with Ienzo because they were both raised in the castle and were about the same age. She's a little older, but not by much. The joke about when Axel walks up and says, "I feel like we're friends already," is because that also could have been true because they grew up together in the same world. And Axel knows this, and Kyrie does not know this, and so on and so forth. And my favorite shitpost AU of Kyrie never left Radiant Garden and also grew up to be a scientist. There was also lots of foreshadowing and explanation for her being from Radiant Garden early in Kingdom Hearts 1. It's just really weirdly hard to get to because you have to do the talk to the NPC until they run out of dialogue a couple of times. But it is talked about, and her grandmother's story and stuff. Next slide. Kyrie's Keyblade. It is concerning because we don't know where the heck it came from. Riku just walked up one day and went, "Here, have a Keyblade. I have this."
It might be Marluxia.
It might be Marluxia's because we now know Marluxia was a Keyblade master. We'll get to that later. If you haven't played the cell phone game, by the way, Marluxia used to be a Keyblade master. We don't know what his Keyblade TM looked like, and since that is covered in flowers and he is the flowery asshole, it is possible that that is where that came from.
Also, I think Riku said he found it in Castle Oblivion.
Oh, did he? Oh, well then it's definitely not Lucius if he found it in Castle Oblivion. That just answers that. Yes, and she shows up 15 minutes late at the end of Dream Drop Distance for Keyblade training and will hopefully be somewhat optional in Kingdom Hearts 3. Moving forward. And as for our next topic, hit the slide.
I'm just gonna get everyone to take all.
I would also just like to point out that yes, Deadpool is canonically a Keyblade master. Yes. Question? Hold on. The defense?
In Riku's defense, I think he meant on that particular.
In Riku's defense, he had like Ansem and Maleficent both feeding him lies to try and get him to break up with his boyfriend for like a while. So he has objective misinformation and it's not his fault. However, every time I see this line, I could the person whose fault it actually is Donald and Goofy, because if one of them had just mentioned, well, what about Aqua and Ben during that entire conversation, we might have solved, a lot of problems. Riku. Also that, well, yeah. He did.
I've got one thing that's always puzzled me about Riku's Keyblade.
Sure.
Why does it have a eye similar to the one that's supposed to be on launch time?
So fun thing to clarify real quick. The Kingdom Key is Riku's original Keyblade, which is a thing Nomura talked about in an interview in one of the old Ultimedia guides. I always thought until that point that the Kingdom Key looked like the Kingdom Key because it came from Ventus, who is half of the Keyblade. That is Riku's Keyblade. It matches his color scheme. It has blue and yellow for those reasons. And Sora just jacked it. He grew another one out of Soul Eater. Soul Eater turns into a Tudon. They are not two separate weapons. And Soul Eater has a mysterious eye because fuck the Master of Masters. And that's all we know. Link. Yes, and in Kingdom Hearts 3, Wastegon also transforms into Broken. That way, Roxas.
Is it me or was anybody else shocked when Lee brought out a Keyblade out of nowhere at the end of 3?
Even yet.
Oh, yeah.
I can't be the only one that.
Everyone, and you get a Keyblade, and you get a Keyblade. Everyone gets a Keyblade.
So what? Genshin just giving out Keyblades like he's over?
Yes.
To circle around the Deadpool thing, just to answer that because you wanted to know, is from a mobile game. Oh, Shion has a question. There is a Marvel mobile game where Deadpool has Keyblades as a joke weapon, but like because he's Deadpool, everything he does is always canon because he breaks the fourth wall. So that's what happened there. Yes, not
Okay.
innocent girl.
Okay. Rude, first of all. Second, okay. Second, we keep talking about No Name, and I wanted to point out, because I've watched back cover so many times, I watch it when studying, the scene, its eye is actually called the Gazing Eye. And when the Master of Master gives it to Luciu goes, oh, so the Keyblade's name is the Gazing Eye, and the Master of Masters just go, oh, no name.
No name, yeah. Cause he
and did he mean the Keyblade has no name, and Luciu just went, oh, that's its name.
Luciu is like, Senpai gave me a Keyblade called the No Name, and
that's its name now.
That's what happened.
Thank you,
It was a misunderstanding. Red, right there.
Alright, so this kind of goes back to like the whole, the 7 people
Yes.
Pure Light thing. Is Sora considered one of those 7 people? Because
He, right now, is technically being fought over as whether or not he counts as a Seeker of Darkness because Xehanort wants him, and also Mickey's like, no, he's one of our Guardians of Light, fuck you. And so that is up for debate in Kingdom Hearts 3 while people like play tug of war with him. Behind you there is a Sailor Scout.
Sailor Scout. Hi. Venus?
Valkyrie Keyblade. Her Keyblade actually has a meaning. The handle represents Destiny Islands, hence the water. the staff means the sunset, and then the flowers represent radiant garden. So it is
Ah,
designed
okay.
for Kyrie herself.
It is designed for Kyrie. That is good to know, and thank you.
Thanks.
Anyway, moving on from the shitpost slide. So Keyblades. We know very little of Keyblades. I know I keep repeating this. For an integral part of the game and series and lore, they are very dodgy about telling us things about them. There are a few instances in a few Zayla reports around. One of the big things is the three family of Keyblades. There are Keyblades of Light, Keyblades of Darkness, and Keyblades of Heart. There is the one Keyblade of Heart that we saw in KH1. It is physically made from the Princesses of Heart. We don't know if, like, you make a Keyblade out of a heart and that makes it a Keyblade of Heart. We don't know if that means all Keyblades are Keyblades of Hearts, or so on. Keyblades of Light are from the realm of light, and Keyblades of Darkness are from the realm of darkness. It has nothing to do with what their actual power source is. Therefore, this is a Keyblade of Light, because it is from the realm of light. Mickey's Keyblade is a Keyblade of Darkness, because he went and got it from the realm of darkness. I don't know about No Name, because the Master of Masters, like, hand-made it, so it is questionable, but under this logic, it is a Keyblade of Light. There are questions over here.
What about Riku's Keyblade?
It is a Keyblade of Light. It came from the realm of Light TM. Although it is another special case because he grew it out of a sword. So, I don't know. Yeah.
So I know a little bit about Hema and Hama, and how the hell do you wield that sword, the Keyblade?
It's mostly for decoration and pointing at Kingdom Hearts. It's not for actually fighting.
Vanitas tried, Vanitas failed.
Vanitas tried, Vanitas failed. Vanitas just kind of held it in front of him like a spear and went, you. Yes. Thoughts on Riku's car key? I have had people.
He watched too much Final Fantasy 15.
He did. He was like, oh man, that Noctis guy, I want that fashion, and it was a mistake. But more on Riku's plaid capris later. Link. Bye, Noctis.
Bronxes.
Project.
So, as we've seen, we've only seen one Keyblade of Heart.
Yes.
Questionably, and it's the only Keyblade we've seen that didn't have a keychain. So
Yes.
what does that mean about the beta designs of the Wayfinder Trio's Keyblades? Because in the first secret ending we see of them, their Keyblades don't have keychains.
That could mean originally they were intended to have questionable origins, because basically Keyblade of Heart right now, as far as I'm concerned, is definitely made of people and therefore concerning. It was almost certainly changed because we definitely have after the Keyblade War, all, like, Keyblades manifest to, look at the next slide, because I'm not sure I don't have more of this. This is how Keyblades, we're going to keep talking about Keyblades in general to answer your question. Let's go with that. So Keyblades can be achieved in three ways. You can get them through Power of Succession, where you inherit the power, not necessarily just the Keyblade. You can inherit the physical Keyblade through the deceased if you have the power already. That's how Aqua got Ericus's and similar things. And through touching the heart of another, which is how Sora got his ability to wield a Keyblade. Arguably, he also was just, like, if you have the power, you can be handed a Keyblade. That is how Roxas and Riku switch off in Deep Dive. That is also how Sora got Riku's Keyblade in the first place. The point at which Riku is offering his hand to him, Riku's desire to, like, be with and protect Sora, like, overrode, and the Keyblade was like, oh, you want me to protect this child? Okay, and went to Sora. That is Nomura's explanation for what happened. So that's how he wound up with the Keyblade in his hand in that moment, and Riku getting, like, kicked back into the darkness. Next slide. They can break apparently now. Yeah, okay, so that's about it. That'll be the last Keyblade slide that I have. What we know is that they were forged actively during the time of Key, the cell phone game, and the browser game, during the time of the Keyblade War, to mimic the Keyblade. And so at that time they were being made. In theory, no new Keyblades have been made. Keyblades that match a person go, I like you, and manifest to that person. So while I say the Kingdom's Key is Riku's Keyblade, there was probably someone during the Keyblade War who had that Keyblade whose spirit was like, Riku seems legit. And that's how he got it. In the very, very back behind you, Roxy.
I'm not aware of it. At least I can't remember it. What's the name of the browser version of the game?
That was just.
It was Kingdom Hearts Key. The cell phone version is Unchained and is now called Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. We will talk about that in depth later when I have more slides. Like.
You were saying he was actually created this.
I said in the same breath as saying Riku grew Wayward Wind.
Yeah.
Or not Wayward Wind. Way to Dawn.
He
Yes.
grew Way to the Dawn. So does this mean that Riku potentially, with training and experience, has the same power as the Master of Masters and can make new Keyblades? And that's where his Cardum key comes from, because he was like, I can do this, and he manifested a new Keyblade, but he's really bad at it. He didn't have a basis for it, so it just looks like a really old car.
I don't know. Maybe it could also be like, oh, hi Terra Senpai, you have a car key. That's the hit new thing. Totally.
What if Riku was the
Riku?
Masters?
I believe.
One thing though about the car key, wasn't there already a car key design? I think it was Fenrir.
Yes, there are car keys. Technically, Earthshaker and Ends of the Earth are car key shaped, and there is Fenrir also already. It was mostly just Nomura wanting to do something different. Though someone wrote, was it you? I had a friend who wrote a long. No. It was Adonis Gamer, who I don't know if they're. Oh, that is you! You're late again! I wasn't sure if it was you. You're the one who wrote the expose at me about how it represents the parts of him that are missing now, and that's why there are the notches and something. It was good. It was good. Can right in the middle row, right next to you, because they're closer to you.
Alright, in the first mini trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3, you saw the Master Keeper at Destiny Islands. How did it get from the Dark Margin?
That was stated to not be canon.
Okay.
That was a demo. Those were the things they had the models for in the engine. You had a question. We'll get back to you. I promise. I'm sorry. I know. Loud crowd.
So, in terms of Keyblade, that's great. Getting a Keyblade, is it very similar to getting a wand from Harry Potter?
Yes.
When the wand chooses the wizard,
Yes.
not the other way around.
Yes.
So the Keyblade chooses the master.
Yes, it is exactly that to the extent of my knowledge. It was Riku's, and Riku accidentally handed it to him, and it worked because Sora had a vent inside him that let him hold Keyblades. Yes, it never chose Sora. It is not Sora's Keyblade. Sora does not have a Keyblade.
Yes.
Think about that. Grab Adonis, and then behind you we will get you, and then we're going to move on again.
Well, going back.
That's because one of them is Shion's.
So going back to a question about.
Sorry. You good? What you're asking?
Going back to the question about Master Zane, Ericus's Keyblade.
Yes.
Even if it was canon, which it isn't. If it was, couldn't it be explained by the fact that due to the interference of Sora and Riku when they were in the Dark Margin, they effectively created a possible openable temporal door to Destiny Island?
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, the Dark Margin and Destiny Island are vaguely connected, as we know. The bottle from Kyrie wound up in Dark Margin. The issue and the reason why they announced it as non-canon is because there's no reason for Aqua to not have it anymore. That would have meant Aqua dropped it for some reason. And that's what was the concerning. It's very plausible for it to have wound up on Destiny Island somehow. In the back.
So, isn't it implied at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 when Sora gets his first strike form that he's handed down the Starseeker Keyblade? That wasn't the case in Birth by Sleep? He uses as his offhand.
He uses it in his offhand. He gets the keychain. His ability to wield two Keyblades is manifested because of Roxas and Xion. Because he finally got them back. And that was the intent with that. Originally, although this might be we have more complicated lore, so we're fudging our metaphysics issue. This is absolute last.
So, is there anything Riku can't do?
No.
Be gay on screen? I don't know.
No, that was encoded.
Get a shirt that covers his belly button?
Wait, does the white one not cover his belly button? I haven't seen.
No, it doesn't. His belly button, he cannot hide it. It is too good. It would be, he would be depriving the world of his washboard abs.
Okay, I'm going to the
He
next
can't not
slide.
protect Sora. Next slide. Okay, so now talking about KH2X, which we have like a whole hour for that and moving on theories.
And we're gonna need it.
Yes, and we're going to do it. Well, I slowed down a lot, but I knew we had time. So, KH2X, KH Unchained Key, KH Shooting Cross is actually very important to the overall plot and scheme of things. I know I said at the beginning that Nomura is trying to keep it from making Kingdom Hearts 3 confusing, but that doesn't mean it's not impacting it in any way. It has the same prophecy that Xehanort says in the KH3 trailer. That is a thing that came to pass. Darkness did prevail, and ruled the world. That is the same as the world we talked about at the beginning. We have people like Ephemera, who, why would you trust a white-haired anime boy? We have Shirzy Dream Eater, and we have, no name is now confirmed, but the foreteller Keyblades. Oh, I didn't do a thing with Dorkness. I'll talk about that later. Next slide. Meanwhile, in Japan, so the browser version of Key and the cell phone are two distinct separate things. Nomura talks about this a lot, and how they are similar but different, connected but separate games. The idea is that the browser version, which you can watch all the cutscenes from on YouTube via Everglow, subtitled, is the actual story of the Keyblade War as it happens. It is messed up. You just die at the end. It is sad. There are lots of concerning things. Also murdering your friends. Hearts flying over the battlefield as everyone is mass murdered. Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be a happy time.
It was not meant to be a happy time. It was the Keyblade War, and they give you an accurate depiction of the Keyblade War. They do not show you anything too revealing as to like exactly how Kingdom Hearts got summoned or how the world got passed in the darkness, because it's from your perspective and ends with you literally dying. So, well, actually, you getting a Ishoni Iku will go together from Ephemera, aka Gay Jesus, as the screen fades to white. Next slide. So this is like my clarification thing. Back cover takes place in the same like real world timeline of this is the actual Keyblade War as the browser version. It is just focusing on the perspective of the foretellers rather than the people fighting the war. Unchained and Union Cross, which are the same thing and directly going to each other, aren't real like many things in Kingdom Hearts and many people. Hey! Basically they happen in the Matrix. This is tied in and made prevalent in Coded, which is apparently important. They talk about how Jimmy's journal have these data worlds, and Ellipsis talks about how it reminds her how the Book of Prophecies work. The way the Book of Prophecies works and the way the cell phone games work is people might ask, and your character asks at one point, how are we going to these other worlds when we only have one world? And you're sitting going, yeah, how are we visiting Snow White when Terra and Ben already did that and stuff? How does that work? And it's because none of those are real. They are illusion matrix projections. Ephemera explains this to you, the Book of Prophecies creates fake versions of these worlds from the memories of the future. It is basically the same way Chain of Memories and Castle of Oblivion function. More on that later. And so Union Cross is where all the dandelions went. For those of you who have seen back cover and participated in things, you know about the dandelions, how they were the group of Keyblade builders who were told to not fight in the war and go sit in this corner so you miss the apocalypse. They were all shoved in this matrix, and that is what Union Cross is. A very telling sign of this is the fact that the Union Cross fan event was called the Dandelion Meeting. Because even though your character thinks they're not a dandelion, they are, or they're like a hologram and dead and stuff. That also.
I think Ephemera just jacked us because we weren't an official dandelion, but he was like, but I like that one.
Pretty much. And so that is how those two things overlap and how Nomura has expressed wanting them to overlap, basically. There's more evidence with this. Click the next slide. Is it? No, it is not on the slide. With a thing with Maleficent in the original cell phone version that I will talk about when we get to the slide of it. So the in-canon referral to the Keyblade War era is the Age of Fairy Tales. It is all connected. Kyrie's grandmother's story is told at the beginning when you log in, like when you play Unchained for the first time, because she is talking about that time period of the Keyblade War before it happens. Next. So, the characters from Key that are relevant. We have the foretellers and those other two guys. There is noticeably 7 of them. There's also that time where Mom, the Master of Masters, we call him Mom because that's how abbreviations work, goes, "You don't think the world can be saved by 7 people," and it's ironic because that's what Mickey is trying to do. As far as we know, we don't know who Mom is. He's probably just Ryan Reynolds, aka Deadpool, because, yes. Yes?
As I saw the movie, the back cover, and every time that he was on the screen, it always reminded me of Dimmix.
Yes.
Because he has the same kind of mannerisms as Dimmix.
His mannerisms are like a combination of Demix and Brague, which is really concerning, especially since Brague is missing an eye. Yeah. He is missing, well, he's missing an eye because Tara fucking stabbed him in the eye. Lake.
With his car key.
So, but you're looking at all
You can tell who's who by just looking at their shoulder pads.
Yes.
Because like Demix has shoulder pads straight out of David Bowie music video.
You cannot do that in Dream Drop because they started using the same character model for everyone. They actually outright announced, like, oh yeah, we just use Sayex's character model for Young Xehanort when his hood is up. Sorry, continue.
Where I was going with that is, does the Master of Masters have a special set of shoulder pads, or did they just Sayex Ex Machina his model?
If he does, it is different from everyone else. He has a slimmer build than most members of the organization. He does not have Demix or Brave's very noticeable shoulder pads or anything. Well, though everyone has those now. That is an updated model thing. At first we thought that his zipper pull and his chains were different, but that is we have a fancy engine with more pulleys difference that all of the organization members have now, not just him, so.
There is also a possibility that there is no body under that cloak.
There is also that chance, because it's Kingdom Hearts. It could be a Mr. Rogue Guy situation. It could be anything. It could be Ventus and Vanitas standing on each other's shoulders with a coat over them. Anyway, we have the foretellers. We don't technically know their real names. To the extent of our knowledge, the names that they have are the nicknames that the Master Masters gave them, that are the 7 sins, which is not concerning at all. Envy is envy, Ira is wrath, Offset is sloth, Av is greed, Gula is gluttony. It is ironic because they all seem to represent the opposite of the sin that they were named after. Like, Ava is not greedy, she is incredibly selfless. Envy has the job that is the least envious, that is like, I'm just going around watching my friends and taking care of them, I don't care about being in the spotlight. Like, if someone was going to have envy, and it makes sense it would be Offset because that was his problem. And essentially has sloth. He is not lazy. He's too unlazy, if anything. And Lucio is lust. Despite thinking it is a lux pun, it is actually the reverberation of the Latin word for lust. And he is sitting in his corner with his mysterious box and his keyblade made of eye. Going forward, but we don't after this slide. But we don't even know who the traitor is yet. Only we do. In the browser version of Key, there is a lot of cut and dry cinematography that makes it very obvious that one of the traitors, which is the caveat, is Ava. There are 3 different traitors people are looking for, and no one realizes that they're different, and that's the problem. There is Ira looking for the traitor who is making dark Chirithes. That could be anyone. It might not be a foreteller. It could be the Master of Masters himself, most likely. There is the traitor, by definition, people who have betrayed the teaching of the Masters of Masters. That is why in back cover people start calling Offset the traitor, because he has betrayed the Master of Masters and just lump that together and assume that that means he's making dark Chirithes, where there's actually no reason for that to be connected. The third one, which is the one that Ava is the one actually written in the Book of Prophecies. In the back cover, Gula reads a passage from the Book of Prophecies, as well as in the fuller version of it that is longer in Key, that is the ripped out page that he gets. Ventus, can you read that? I'm too far away.
This one?
Yes. All of the ones where Gula's talking out loud.
It says, the one unable to forgive this distastefulness, who thought of fate with pessimism and lost true strength, the one who will misread the truth and step into secrecy. And with that one swing, the bell that tells the end of the battle will sound, and the battle will finally begin at its destined time.
So this is what Gula reads. As he's reading it, it cuts to Ava and Lushu fighting each other and a bell tolling. So it has to be one of them, and it can't be Lushu because he's not a real foreteller. And it is, there are a pile of reasons it's not Lushu. Most of them are, he's the one person who the Master of Masters trolled the least, basically, and is the one who's like actually like, yeah, I'm doing all of the things I'm supposed to, as far as the Book of Prophecy is concerned. The whole conversation, he also says, yep, that's the identity of the traitor. He's talking to Ava. He probably walks up to her and goes, you're the traitor, that's what the book said. And you're going, oh, I guess I'm doing that now. Yes.
So speaking of Lushu and Project, does anyone other than people who make me know what's actually in the box?
No one knows what's in the box.
No.
It's probably Ben.
It's probably Ben. The real big kid actual logical reason Lushu cannot be the traitor is because arguably he fulfilled his role and did what he was supposed to because he passed down the Keyblade successfully. We know that. We know he did what he was supposed to on some capacity. He might have still done some sketchy things. We don't know, but...
The master knew too, because,
yeah.
Because in order for it to,
yeah.
he just knew.
And judged on the passage, the idea is Ava can't handle like the number of people who die and the unfairness the same way Strelexia couldn't to the people who aren't dandelions who are just dying. And she probably is stupid and takes Gula's advice and goes and activates Kingdom Hearts, which is what causes everything, yes. We don't.
And that is the
we don't. He has a different voice actor, which is actually the biggest and strongest arguments. It is a pretty solid argument because we have all ages of Xehanort voice. Like, he is only ever going to be Richard Epcar, Ben Niskin, or whoever they're getting to replace Leonard Nimoy, bless his soul.
That's what I was about to say. If they ended up casting the voice for Nimoy, we wouldn't know.
Well, but Lushu is not old. Lushu is a small, so we know it's not going to be Leonard Nimoy's voice, is the thing. I apologize. It is a mess. Key is where it starts being a mess because this panel actually was concise and made sense until Key started having regular updates. Okay. I said regular, not frequent. Yes, moving on. So for Nomura, even game mechanics are foreshadowing. Just so everyone knows, you can have a Keyblade wielding nothing but Xehanort and like actual Heartless while you are going around fighting the Darkness. Because you know. So that is the thing that is concerning. Actually, Keyblades mechanically force you, in order to optimize, to use 50% Darkness, which says a lot about like Riku being right and Mickey being right and wielding light and darkness in equal shares and stuff like that. Balance. That's a big thing there. It's also important to keep in mind when we talk about the cards, because in the browser version of Key, you used cards, not medals, and in Shade Memories, we used cards. More on that in another slide, going forward. Your character is extremely sketchy. If you're, the player character from Key is 13th Vessel confirmed, I will not bat an eye, because, there's an entire arc where, you just take Darkness lessons from Hades casually, and, you're really good at it, and Hades is, yeah, Hades is actively confused how you survive so well in the underworld, and like the only reason you're stopped is like, I kind of like Cloud better than you, so bye. You can, make yourself look comically evil. Also, like, the first time you ever have speaking lines, and some of the only speaking lines you have, is, like, angrily speaking up against the foreteller, being like, your whole going on a literal holy crusade and murdering all of the not pure of heart people is a problem, and fuck you. Going forward. Talking about the kids on the cover, our second gen foretellers from Key. For those of you who don't know, what happens is, you're familiar with the original foretellers, they died in the Keyblade War. Another evidence towards browser key being different, they passed down after the Keyblade War to 5 dandelions, books that are like transcripts of the Book of Prophecies, although one person has a real one, it is probably them. They become the second gen foretellers, as some of the fandom calls them, or the new union leaders. And that is a big, like, they're sitting there going, talking about, like, man, it's so weird every time something happened like it did in the old world. Thanks, Ephemera. But yes, Ephemera is your typical white-haired anime boy. Despite being framed as a protagonist and a good bean, if you take his arguments out of context and put them next to Xehanort, they have all of the same moral arguments and philosophies. Now, that does not mean that he's going to go around cutting children in half, like some people. But it is a obvious intentional juxtaposition that he's also saying, why don't we learn and make our own decisions and discover things, which is Xehanort's whole thing. Skuld, aka your god. For those of you who are not familiar with Norse mythology, Skuld is the name of one of the Norns. For those of you more familiar with like Greek mythology, which you probably are because you're here, so you've seen the Hercules movie, which is all you need for this. They are like the fates. They are the Norse fates. There are 3 sisters. It is Skuld, Verdandi, and Erd. I am almost certain Verdandi and Erd will be characters that are introduced because they've also been talking about introducing new characters in Key for a while. Skuld is also a Valkyrie. She is the Nord who represents knowledge of the future. Her existence is concerning. She also has gold eyes. When you die in the browser version of Key, you see a figure and say a goddess, and then like she walks up. So there's that. Take that as you will. We don't really have any more information on that. You are tentatively raising your hand, Adonis.
When you look at like Ephemera's arguments and whatnot, he's kind of like what could be considered like a good alternative to Xehanort.
Yes.
You've heard the rumors that at the Kingdom Hearts 3 premiere event that there's a split as to what was said as to whether Kingdom Hearts 3 will have a difficult to accept ending or Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross will have a difficult to accept ending. If it is Kingdom Hearts 3, what do you think about the idea that Xehanort wins? He summons Kingdom Hearts, balances the worlds, they don't all end up imploding and dying, and then Xehanort just walks away like, I was right.
If people want my personal opinion, even though he's going about it the wrong way, Xehanort is objectively right about his philosophies. He's like...
Xehanort Mojo Jojo.
Xehanort is kind of Mojo Jojo. He's going, we live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and I'm trying to fix it. And he admittedly tries to minimize damage by only murdering the Wayfinders instead of a lot of people, which is not great or helpful, but he's trying the best he can, which is why I will post it one day, my lengthy, in the somewhat facetious defense of Xehanort shitpost, yes.
Even if that's true, though, you have to admit that just because Xehanort may have the right idea, doesn't mean everyone that follows him has the right idea.
No. And just because he has the right idea doesn't mean he's going about it in a right way or a helpful way or a good way. I also, before we get to your question, would just like to say about the tweet that is the ending might be hard to swallow. Most people interpreted this as, oh, something sad is going to happen and someone is going to die. I think it has to do more with a weird, bittersweet, melancholy morality issue. Beyond that, ranging from Xehanort wins to one of the gay ships is canon and people are going to be pissed. Like, levels of stuff.
Sora dies.
He will not, because Nomura has already announced Sora will always be the protagonist and he is already working on, like, K4 is already a thing. So it cannot be Sora. It would make the most sense for me to it be Sora that he has said those things. Anyway, there are questions over here.
What if the hard to swallow thing is Sora actually goes to the darkness?
I would be very happy, honestly. I will throw a party. It will be a Sora Dork party, and
Sora Dork party.
Like,
That's
so
gonna be
good.
a hell of a hard.
It would be
That's
hard to
gonna be a
swallow.
hell of a hard
yes. Anyway, moving on. We're starting to get close. Oh yes, it's you. It's your dead waifu. So for those of you who haven't played, Strelitzia shows up. Is one of the second gen foretellers. Is a wonderful sweetheart. It's this whole thing about how she's too shy to talk to you, the player character, and watch you from the distance. Is the first person to actually go, you know, maybe only basically creating an arc and only selectively allowing the people we think are good enough to live is not morally correct. But doesn't act on it because she's shy, and then gets murdered. Yay. Most people, she also is in this artwork in a cloak with a flower that is like a thing that represents dead maidens because symbology and flowers, and is potentially the first nobody in existence. Next slide. Suddenly Marluxia. This is Lorian. He is Marluxia's somebody. He is a several thousand-year-old Keyblade wielder who is one of the second gen foretellers. Most people assume, because of the timing, that he is the one who killed Strelitzia. I personally believe it is a hard red herring, as well as other factors that we are about to get into. Going forward, Marluxia and Strelitzia. So if you look closely at the boss mech, it is a girl, it is a woman, and it is, Strelitzia is the bird of paradise flowers, official name. The, design and the points are all based off of the design and shape of that flower, so it is likely that his boss mech and the boss, lady he summons in Rechain Memories is literally Strelitzia. The fact that the entire Nobody motif has that, whole shape that is on the bird of paradise might be because she was the first Nobody. It is in combination with these facts and the idea that Marluxia is going around being mad about the true organization and stuff like that, that it, to me, makes me think that they were working together, not apart, and he got his graceful assassin title from going on a vengeful rampage in Strelitzia's name rather than having just murdered this one girl. Going forward. Marluxia in page 3, because suddenly Marluxia, again. The only organization, as he says, this could refer to Xehanort's organization as the true organization, and that was why he was such a salty bitch in Calm with the original organization, going, this is some bullshit. It could mean that there is, in fact, because it's Kingdom Hearts and it could be more complicated, a third organization that was founded by, Strelitzia and the Master of Masters, that basically Xehanort is this is my shitty fanfiction fanboy, I want to be part of this organization thing, I read in a history book once, so I made one. And he's no. We have no real way to know if at any point Marluxia has or hasn't gotten his memories of his time as a Keyblade wielder back, because Ben doesn't seem to have those. It would, either or, he's very nice to Roxas, which implies the connection as well, because Roxas looks like some Ben.
Marluxia seems to desperately want a Keyblade, and you would think that if he remembered that he was a Keyblade master, he wouldn't need Roxas for his Keyblade.
Yes. He, also, the fact that he was so close to Ben the whole time in Castle Oblivion is also deeply ironic. Also, fun fact, if you think about it, if Marluxia won at the end of Chain of Memories, he would have stopped Xehanort and saved the world. By doing very shitty things, but technically, Xehanort would have run out of vessels, and he would have been sitting there going, haha, no. Moving forward. Yes. Blaine, who I refuse to call by his official organization name because it's silly. We know very, very little about him, other than he has a mysterious hat, is not Ienzo, even though his sprite looks like Ienzo. His official artwork obviously looks less like that. He is sketchy, and basically, if we're talking about who murdered Strelitzia, if we're assuming it's one of the 5 and there is a traitor, it's either him or Ventus, because it's not ephemera. We saw him get handed the book, so we know he didn't take her place, and same with Skald. Roxy.
Okay, so I have a question.
What is your question?
Anybody else question how Blaine just starts putting together the spirits
Yes, it is very concerning that he just sits down and is like, I know a lot of science, it's fine.
They did technically say at the Dandelion event that the names of people were important and how they were spelled.
Yes.
But I still prefer Blaine.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, that was not necessarily in reference to Blaine. That was almost certainly in reference to Lorium because he's Marluxia's somebody, and the entire. Several of you may have missed this entire hiccup on the internet where Nomura made a shitpost when someone asked if Lorium was his somebody, and he went, Lorium is Lorium. And after several mistranslations later, the internet was yelling, Nomura announces that Lorium is not Marluxia's somebody. What is going on? And we were very confused for a while. At the Dandelion event, he seemed to, without admitting and going, no, I just made a shitpost, calm down, trying to go, no, that was the intent. I'm sorry I confused people. Going forward, what's in the box? We don't really know a lot about the box. It seems to read X Super, which, following the naming scheme of the other four colors, the Master of Masters name would be Superbia, which is pride, which is the sin that was not taken. So that, that makes sense. There are 13 spikes on the outside, 7 on the inside, like the Keyblade elements. 13 locks on the box. It is person size. One of the theories that is that you need all 13 Seekers of Darkness to open locks at the same time, and that is one of the reasons they need them. It almost certainly has something to do with the Keyblade or the Book of Prophecies. It is conspicuously person-sized, and every time there's a person-sized box, there's a bitch in that box. If there's anything that Kuro Shichiji and Outlaw Star and Gurren Lagann have taught me, it's that you open a person-sized box and your life is inside. So it could be freaking Strelitzia. The leading theory for a while was probably Ven because of how extra dubious Ven's existence suddenly became. An idea of the Master of Masters' real body because it reads X Super is a thing. I have personal theories about that being Ven. That is why I still think of Ven, but that's left field. I'm trying to keep this relevant canon information. So that's that. That thing with bullets that no one wants to talk about. So there is a secret ending to the browser version of Key. It involves Maleficent showing up and being like, oh cool, a place where I can hide from Sora. And you go, that's not how time works. And is referencing a bunch of stuff that happened in KH2 while standing next to the player character. This is the first big evidence thing to the idea of Unchained Key is set in a lie matrix world that still exists. The idea is that Unchained Key has been on a loop of replaying the events of the Keyblade War this whole time, and all of the Key kids are still there. And they may or may not show up in KH3 finally getting out. Also, their ending, their suffering needs to be ended or whatever it was encoded. It might actually not have been referring to Terra, Ven, and Appa, but in fact the Key kids. Yes, Link.
If Dream is technically repeating over and over again, repeating the events of Keyblade War, what could it potentially cause the Union Cross to kind of split and diverge around quests 145? What made it that way the Dream of the Book of Prophecies didn't keep ending up in Keyblade War? Why did it diverge?
Your phrasing makes me want to blame Titus and Xanarkand. But seriously, it probably has to do with something externally happening in KH3 time. It could be that the Dream Drop Distance keyholes were sealed and we woke in the sleeping worlds, and that might be part of the reason. Note that the idea of it repeating is the same logic they use when Sora visits the sleeping worlds in Dream Drop, which is where that came from. Riku.
Just had a crazy thought. What if the box held the data world or the events of Unchained?
If it did, it would just be the Book of Prophecies because we already know that those things are in the Book of Prophecies. In the very back, and then we're going to keep going.
Since he's finally on screen, genuine opinions on Pete.
He's a lovely individual.
Lovable villain.
He
is a good boy.
He's a good boy. Pete is a good boy. Pete is a good boy.
Friends.
I don't know.
Maleficent.
Hopefully he didn't make Goofy's son a seeker of darkness, but that is neither here nor there. If you understand that reference. Anyway, next slide. So Castle Oblivion and the Book of Prophecies, I talked about this briefly. They both have cards. The way that the Book of Prophecy functions, as I mentioned, is that it projects worlds. This is the same as Castle Oblivion and the Book of Prophecies. You know, they function the same way. They have one thing in common. That is Ventus, which is a leading theory on Ventus has or is the Book of Prophecies in some capacity. And Castle Oblivion starts working the way it is, not just because of Aqua's magic, but because Ben is powering it. It could just be, it was stored in the Land of Departure because that's also where No Name was, and that's why it does the thing. Oh, that's another reason that the cycle could have been broken is Ben going into the realm of sleep and showing up, and mucking with things. The idea is that because mechanically both gameplay mechanics and lore mechanics, they function identically, they are almost certainly connected and powered, like Castle Oblivion is somehow powered by the Book of Prophecies, and that's where it is and a thing to think about. Next slide. Chess! We're going to talk about chess! We're going to overanalyze chess! Yes, you can when it's Square Enix.
Yes.
When this trailer came out, it's the oldest but most informative of the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers. Each piece on the chessboard has an obvious connection to someone. Here is the lineup of each piece matches someone's keychain or obvious identifying symbol. So you know that piece represents that character. If you follow the whole chess game, it is each move, each piece being taken and fighting with each other mirrors the events of the entire franchise from BBS through Kingdom Hearts 2. Because we start with things like Aqua and Vanitas' piece taking one of Ven's pieces, and then Aqua taking Vanitas and stuff like that, which is how BBS happened. Vanitas possessed Ben, and then Aqua punched him in the face. And that is why there are some obscure pieces that get taken are almost definitely second Ben and Aqua because of how it lines up with the thing. There are 7 pieces on this board, which means these are almost certainly our bona fide guardians of light, despite Zaya wanting that fine Sora booty. He is on Team Hikari. Yay.
I don't know, doesn't Shion's Keyblade have that crown symbol? Maybe it's Shion.
It is definitely Sora Kiddo.
No, it is. I didn't like her.
It better be Shion.
Next, Team Darkness. Team Darkness is much more complicated because there are 13, at any point, you never see more than 13 pieces on the board. Or I'm sorry, it's at the end of the game there are exactly 13 pieces on the board in the wide shot. There are a few pieces that are obscured that we have trouble identifying because we don't know who they are yet. The ones that we do know, Master Xehanort's goat on No Name, so it's obviously Master Xehanort. Young Xehanort's keychain. The Guardian, or Unguardian, as I like to make fun of the way Ansem says it. I had to listen to that audio clip 500 times. Gosh darn it. Science's Claymore. This is Void Gear keychain. Luxord's dice. Yes, Luxord. We will talk about Luxord. He has his own slide. The cross blades appear to be Xemnas' energy beam weapons. That is the one that's like, it would make sense because of how pieces are taken and how it's all it's usually like mirroring what the answer pieces are doing. 6 pieces unknown. One of them is obviously Braid because we know Braid is a seeker of darkness. He flaunted this. It is probably the one that is mostly off camera that looks like his gun. There is a 6-pointed star. We have been scouring 6-pointed stars in the franchise, so as most of the fandom. We found one on a flag in Radiant Garden once. We doubt that that is relevant.
Maybe that's Dylan.
Dylan. It could be Dylan.
Because remember how they started
He has 6 lances. What if it's actually too far away and it's all of his lances?
What if it's Axel's chakra?
His chakrams have 8 points, not 6.
Yeah, you are right.
No, the only thing that could be is if we're wrong about science and we're not wrong about science.
Yes. There's a piece that looks like vines that is really off screen. That might be Barlucia. Yes. Axel's piece is on either side of the chessboard, which is concerning. There is a theory concerning Axel/Lee's allegiances involving some technicalities that Xehanort said that might mean he is a seeker. But
like Riku then.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning we're like, oh, he goes darkness.
Yeah.
No, oh, he goes white. No, he's...
Yes. It would be Lee doing the opposite of Riku, basically, because he was like, I thought I could resist the temptation of Sayax, and I was wrong. Link.
The unknowns, now that we know that Larxene is at least to some capacity confirmed for Kingdom Hearts 3, could the top of the unknowns kind of be like two of her little kunai dagger stabby things?
Now that I'm looking at,
That is possible.
it also kind of looks like a Strelitzia flower.
That would also make sense. It is likely that there is someone from He, we don't know if it's an original foreteller or a second-gen foreteller, is going to be one or multiple of those pieces. Replica is possibly one or multiple of those pieces because he got confirmed, but we don't know what side he's going to be on, especially. There's an entire slide on Replica. We'll talk to him about him in a minute. Yes.
Which one?
Oh, you're not wrong. They are at really gross angles and barely on screen, and those are super zoomed in. So it's really hard
Yeah,
to
we
try
got
and
one that's like almost completely off
Yes.
the screen.
So moving forward, I like whoever's ringtone that was. Doubles and takesies, this is going into like the idea of there are two pieces of Riku, and this is because one of them gets taken by the Ansem piece representing you getting possessed. Every time there are two pieces, it's because someone got possessed or like got put out of commission, like by getting thrown in the realm of darkness or quote unquote dying in some capacity. Which goes into this. This is a very lengthy, like going in and talking about a lot of the bits and bobs of like pieces taking other pieces representing people getting defeated. Like the Sora piece takes the Xemnas piece towards the end of the chess game because that's what happened to Kingdom Hearts 2, stuff like that. Going forward, yes, seemingly. So before the trailer came out, there was actually a surprising amount of evidence for Replica coming back in a shitty recap of Chain of Memories and Dream Drop Distance, like one of the text dumps in case you didn't play this game, where it reads...
This one was really mad at me for...
I was so mad Ben kept stopping to read all of them, and then this happens. I'm still mad at you. And it says, before Riku could reach Dominate, he was confronted by the Riku replica. The real Riku won out, and the replica seemingly vanished, which in Sporadic's words means that this boy is not dead, he is coming back. The idea that he may very likely be the Riku that Riku ran into in Dream Drop Distance, that is, because, like, it's either Replica or literally Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1, based off of how Riku talks about that character. It's weird and confusing, but it seems like likely evidence, especially since he sort of just shows up, looks at Riku, glares at him a lot, and leaves. It's very Replica-esque behavior. Click it because... And then that happened! And he was just confirmed. So, we have Replica. This implies that he is less likely a Seeker of Darkness, though, so I don't know. Maybe he is a Seeker of Darkness and Riku just has so much faith in, I used to be an asshole once, he'll get better, it's fine. Moving on. We are really short on time, so I'm holding till the end now. Because I saw the staffer come in and kind of eyes. But I didn't want to be that guy. Luxord. The arguments for Luxord are that he was one of the last members of the organization left at the end of the game. He was the one in the castle guarding Xemnas. And he has cards, which we've talked about is very important and concerning, metaphysically. He also is the time travel guy, and that's concerning. So despite the fact that he didn't do a lot that's important, he may have been sitting there being secretly very important the whole time. If he winds up like pushing Xehanort off a cliff going, haha, I was the main villain the whole time, or is the Master of Masters or something, I won't be surprised. So that is where Luxord came from and why he is relevant. The dice can't be anyone other than Luxord and why he is one of the Seekers. Next. Cloud theory. I talked briefly on this, I think to someone in the hallway, I don't know if I did it on the actual panel. This is my last little fun thing to talk about, which is they did a promotion where they had Sora pose like the cover of FF7 for its anniversary. Sora's Road to Twilight ? Because basically Ensign makes Sora cry. By being like, remember that time when you fucked up really bad and gave into darkness and all of your friends almost died trying to save you because how bad you suck? And Sora was like, and then like you're gonna go to Olympus Coliseum and see a hero who also lost his power. Next slide. While obviously he will talk to Hercules, he may run into Cloud and talk about the fact that Cloud also went through all of the things specifically listed, very, very particularly, and get an angsty, his angsty anti-hero orientation. That he will be very bad at because he's still Sora and he's not really capable of doing that even though he tries. And this should be the last slide. Yes, okay. And so now any and all questions?